Everyone
Hey,
can
guys.
see and hear you. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
We're off like
Hey,
a herd of turtles. Yeah, there we go.
oh, great start. Hey, guys, Robert here. And today I have a special guest with me, first time in a long time that I've had him on, Mr. Dave Gilbert of Wadjet Games. Welcome
Hello.
aboard, Dave.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yep, and there's a special reason why I brought him on. We have one of your games that you've been working on for quite a while. Old Skies is going to be coming out soon. In fact, you're working on the trailer currently. Last I checked,
Yeah, well, the trailer's done. I'm just sort
right?
of doing all the last minute things that you have to
Right.
do before you announce anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting like the press releases ready, getting all the
Mm-hmm.
information ready, getting the website ready, and
Yep.
all this
All
stuff.
the details.
So yeah, there's just like something's like, oh crap, I got to do all this stuff before I announce it, and that's always nerve-wracking
There's
doing
a
an
lot of
announcement,
work to go into making a game that a lot of people I don't think
or
realize.
even just announcing something.
Yeah.
Just I had to. Yeah, there's a lot of little things I got to do. So that's
Yeah.
exciting though. It's exciting.
Yep. For those of you who don't know, Wadjet Games has been one of the, in my opinion, best point and click adventure game studios. You guys have held the torch for traditional classic point and click adventure games when so many people were going different directions. They were following the Walking Dead style and everything, but you guys really kept it going
Oh, thank you.
for
It's all I know how
years.
to do. It's all I have the budget for, really.
Exactly. I mean, wasn't Old Skies originally supposed to be 3D, and then you realize I gotta do 2D?
Briefly,
Yep.
yeah. There's this hot minute where we thought we could do a 3D game
Mm-hmm.
because we had been working on a sequel to Techno Babylon, which sadly had to be put on hiatus because the
Ooh.
developers dealing with a lot of health issues.
Oh, gotcha. I gotcha.
But over the course of making it, we had been tinkering. I was learning the tools because he wanted to make it
Mm-hmm.
in 3D, and
Right.
so we were learning the tools. I was learning Adventure Creator, and I thought, and I made a jam game in
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Played that. I have played that.
Yeah, which was kind of the precursor to this. That was also called Old Skies, and I enjoyed the process so much. I thought, yeah, we could do this. We can make a full game using these.
Mm-hmm.
Using these tools. It, difference between making a little jam game using pre-bought assets versus making everything yourself. There's actually a big difference between those two things.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because we only were making the attempt for maybe about 2 months in
Mm-hmm.
2019. 5 years ago, we spent 2 months trying to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and we gave up and we went back to AGS 2D. But meanwhile, like people are still asking, "Oh, I thought you were making that in 3D." It's like it was 5 years ago for like maybe 2 months, and we haven't done it since. But yet,
Yep.
you know,
Maybe someday you'll do a 3D game. Just not right
maybe
now.
Techno Babylon was looking good before. Sadly, it had to be put to the side. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe one day.
Maybe.
But as of now, we're happy with the tried and true. We know what we can do with it, and
Yep.
we are quite happy in our little niche,
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah, but instead, just look at the amount of the games you got. These guys have done. I
Oh,
mean,
good
some of
God, look at
which
all
you
those.
have made in house. Others have been you have published and
Mhm.
everything. Like excavation of Hobbs Barrow. I mean, Primordia, Unavowed. That's one of your games.
I think we last spoke just before Hobbs Barrow came out.
Yeah, I believe we did. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, not only do you just help publish it, you also help out with some of the stuff like you help out with some of the voice casting, if I recall, for some of the
Mhm.
games. You know, you are pretty involved with a lot of these games, which is always impresses me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I enjoy it.
Mhm.
And also, like, if I had to work 100% of the time on my own stuff, I think I would go crazy. So sometimes
Yeah.
it is nice to like pivot a little bit,
Hmm.
because it's still like working on pivoting to another game for publishing um, doesn't feel like I'm wasting time
Right.
because it's something that I'm doing for Wadjet to put another game out in our
Hmm.
catalog to earn money and so on. And it's nice to be able to do that, to be able to like help these other developers and work with these other developers. I've worked with some just amazing
Oh
writers
yeah.
and designers and artists and everything. But also, it's just it's good for Wadjet that
Hmm.
I do that, and it's good for my sanity because
Yep.
I sometimes just get so burnt out. It's nice to pivot occasionally.
Yep. Now with All Skies, first thing I got to ask: Is it set in the same universe as Blackwell and Unavowed, or is it? It is. It is.
Yep.
That's cool.
The references are a little less overt because Unavowed and Blackwell, they're both urban fantasy. Sorry if you like. I don't know if you're hearing all those alerts.
Nope, no alerts.
Oh, you're not?
hearing
Okay.
anything.
I will keep everything open then. No biggie.
Yep.
It's distracting me.
Not
but
hearing
if you,
anything.
if you can't hear it, no big deal.
Nope.
Because they're both Unavowed and Blackwell were both urban fantasy, and there were some characters that came over, and since they were kind of in the same genre, it was a lot easier to kind of make a lot of references. Old Skies is more sci-fi than urban fantasy or supernatural, and so any references I make are a little bit more subtle. It's like always, it's there for the long-time fans. They'll recognize
like me
certain names, certain characters, certain references.
Right.
But if you've never played any of our games before, you'll still enjoy it. Because I don't think that's fair to make you do homework
no one wants that. No one wants that at all. And by the way, I've actually gone back through a bunch of for some reason I just felt like I want to go play some old Reality on the Norn game.
Oh God, wow. That's going back a long
way. But yeah, some of your games like the Postman, all these guys once and Repossessor, things like that. That was still an interesting project. It still amazes me how the most recent game was in 2019.
The most recent Reality on the Norm game?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were still making them even that late.
Yeah. Someone made it. It's in a parallel universe called Reality in the Norm, where Davey is a pirate instead of doing dark magic.
Of course, yeah. I remember I replayed the Repossessor not long ago, and I thought it was really funny because there's one joke that dates it so badly. Because I think at the end, this one character says, yes, I'll bring this town to the 20th century, and someone goes, 21st century. It's like, 21st century. Like that joke was really funny in 2001.
Yeah, back nowadays.
Hysterical joke in 2001. Now it's just like, what?
We're so far deep into it. It's like, for some, they weren't even around in the 20th century.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh boy, doesn't that make you feel old?
No. Okay, I'm convinced that game came out like last week. That's when I made that game.
But yeah, seriously, but you've just been doing, again, just these adventure games. Like I still remember playing Bestow of Eternity back when that was the original, before it was Blackwell. Hey, I had fun. It was such interesting stuff to lead into everything. Obviously, you fine-tuned everything by the time of Blackwell, and then you fine-tuned things further. Like by the time you got from Legacy to Epiphany, you definitely completely changed. Very different.
I will agree. Yeah, I had. I think I always call Epiphany like that was the vision I had when I made Legacy. I had a certain vision in my head about what I wanted the games to be. And Epiphany is when I finally made that game. And that's when I ended it, because
unfortunately
I don't make any sense, apparently.
Of course, you once went back and redid the Shiva game was the kosher edition. If you could go back to the Blackwell, the other earlier Blackwell games, would you, or are you still content with what you had?
Well, I mean, there's two different questions there. So what would I do if I did? But if you're asking, would I don't think I would. Like if I was offered the choice, it's like I small company, limited funds, resources.
Right.
It's like I don't want to waste that time because I don't think it would lead to much. But I do think as janky as it is, and it was my very first commercial game, or at least the first game that I
what the heck happened?
Okay.
I'll just keep it here.
That's
weird. What
I think every game is on there on that front page.
It's only the first 3 Blackwell games that are over.
This website is so outdated, and I needed, when I said there was a lot to do to announce the trailer on Thursday, one of the things I realized, this website is so outdated that if you go to the individual game pages, the trailers no longer play. And I tried.
I can't do it now.
Yeah, and
Yep.
And I said you had to update PHP. And I tried to update PHP, but then whatever like plugins that were used to make this version of my website no longer work with the latest version of PHP. So I couldn't update PHP. Everything needs to be redone. But since I'm launching this trailer tomorrow, I had to like quickly make a new website just to showcase the game, just a basic Old Skies website. So that's what I was doing this morning. So that'll be unveiled tomorrow. Very bare bones, but it does the job. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've completely forgotten. What was your question? I completely
you already answered about going back Legacy. And doing going back to it.
Yeah. It is as janky as it is, as I said, I stand by it now. I do stand by it because I do think when I consider the experience I had at the time, the money I had at the time, the time I had, which wasn't much, the clout, the reputation, I had nothing. I had nothing to work with. And I think that it was probably the best I could have done with the resources that I had back then.
Definitely.
And so I stand by it because I don't think with the resources and experience I had back then, I don't know what I would have done differently. Obviously now there's 100 things I would do differently with all the experience I have. But back then I don't think I stand by it for that reason. There's other games. I always point to Convergence, the third game in the series, as the game where I should have done better at the time. I was extremely rushed. And it shows. The ending is a little rushed, and I think it shows. People still like it; they don't notice it. But when I look at it, I just think, "Wow, I obviously did not know how to end this thing," and I just trapped the player in an alternate universe while some ghost yelled the plot at you. And I think that's the game where I could have done better, and I should have done better, but I didn't. But I think at the time I didn't want to let perfect be the enemy of done. And I was like about to get married. There was a lot of things happening, and I wanted that game off my plate, and I kind of shoved it out the door. So that's the one game where I think I could have done better. But Legacy, I don't think I could have done better based on who I was at the time. So
and besides, last thing you want to do is probably go back to that stupid dog leash, right?
Honestly, the dog leash, I was a little hyperbolic in the commentary, but excuse me. I think like it was. In hindsight, it's funny when you look back at any project, you've got these rose-tinted glasses, right? Where it's like you just think of how pleasant and simple and easygoing the process was. But when you're enmeshed in it, it's like pure hell. And I think of that dog leash puzzle and how it drove me crazy at the time. Now I spend like weeks and months on problems that are so much more complicated, and that was like a day or two. I figured it out in a day, but at the time. And I hadn't made a game before. That seemed like a long time. I don't mind. But every time I tried to update Blackwell Legacy, I have to update that dog leash puzzle because the way AGS handles raw drawing changes. So I always have had to redo that dog puzzle like 4 or 5 times.
Except for you did the updated commentary then for the 10th anniversary.
Anniversary or whatever. That was 5. That was 5 years.
5th anniversary. Right. And
mostly me saying I'm sorry over and over again.
I still, again, though, the Blackwell games I still adore. And Abe, of course, you're great. I mean, I had him on not long after the last interview.
I remember. Yep.
And I watched his movie a while ago.
So good. I'm in it. Oh,
you are?
Yeah, I'm one of the callers. He called me Mr. Newsletter.
Yep, I remember.
Like it's the Matrix, man. That was.
I think that was in one of the trailers or clips.
I'm in the trailer. Yeah. And not just the trailer, but they have like a preview. They just have
a preview clip. Exactly that bit.
They just have like a scene that's on YouTube, and that's my scene. And I was very happy. The fact that I got to direct Abe was a pure gift. That was wonderful. Abe got to direct me. Abe got to direct me for once.
Yeah, for once.
Usually I'm directing him.
Payback. Kidding.
No, it was fun. It was great. He's an amazing director. He's fantastic.
Oh, yep. But yeah, just so many of these games here. I mean, you mentioned Techno Babylon. Boy, that's another game that had a similar start with yours. Like originally it was like an episodic AGS game, and then you guys made it one bigger game and everything.
Yeah.
It's still
It was a freeware episodic series,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, you do your homework, man. Like, yeah, that was
It's not even homework. I was there. I played them.
Oh,
I
okay.
had those. I had those 3 still on my computer somewhere.
Were you on the AGS forum back then?
Lurked. I lurked.
All right. I hadn't played the freeware versions, but which probably was for the best, because later James was gonna he demoed the commercial version at Adventure X, I think in 2012 or 2013, and it just looked so good. He originally was going to release them one by one, but I asked him if he would be interested in releasing it as one game, and he said yeah, especially since he had asked Ben to do the art for him, and I was already thinking of hiring him full-time anyway, because he was doing so many games that we were doing. It makes sense to like hire him, and here was just another game that Ben was working on that I wanted to publish, so that's another reason. That's what then it's time I hire him. But you can sort of tell.
Great, but Ben is so good as well. Oh, yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is, like, since Techno Babylon was originally 3, I think 3 freeware games.
3 that were released, by that point.
Yeah, like the first part of the game, of the full game, was just like the fancier version of the freeware game, like 1-to-1 remake, and I realized how much that didn't work, because the freeware game was a complete product, but in the commercial game, it was the intro to a much bigger world. And so it had to be streamlined by a lot. And I felt bad because there were just so many puzzles in this one little room. And I think as an intro to a bigger game world, it was a little too unforgiving. So some people got annoyed.
I enjoyed it because I played that original and everything.
Yeah, exactly. But you played it as a one and done product.
Yeah.
Like if you knew that there was a whole big world out there and you were stuck in Lotha's room, you might have been a little frustrated. But no, I loved working on that one. James is so he's such a genius, that guy. He's so
Again, and some of the early games like Resident and Gemini Rue, I adore that game. That is just one of those, like, a great story. I mean, a little, you can figure it out as it goes along, but some of the developments, like taking an AGS game but then doing shooting and everything, I mean,
Josh, I still can't believe Josh was like he was like still at university. He was like a college sophomore when that game came out, and he started making it as a senior in high school, and it blew my mind, and especially when you consider just how, by our standards at the time, just how much that game, like, it really put us on the map at the time.
Oh yeah,
and I'm forever grateful to it, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, I can't see the chat, but if there is one, I'm sure a lot of
If you look on the right side, there should be something that says comments. That's the chat.
Oh, I see. I had it under private chat, so I didn't see anything. Oh yeah. Okay.
Multiverse. In fact, one of my friends, Pika Shades, is looking up your developer page right now.
What was I gonna say?
You're talking about Josh?
Yeah. He was so young when he made this, and especially wild when people knew who we were, but I wouldn't say that we were successful yet, but Gemini Rue just hit the zeitgeist at just the right time, and it kind of managed to break into like a mainstream a little bit. It's not mainstream as like as in AAA, but it got written up on bigger, more mainstream websites.
It was that type of game that started getting the attention, but it didn't explode it. It was more like people took notice. It's when people started getting more notice.
I think everyone called it a very mature adventure game, which is funny considering it was like a kid wrote the thing. But Josh is like he's just a brilliant guy.
Definitely. I mean, you can start to figure out some of the plot. Yeah.
He sadly never went back to game development. He did. He went into web development, started doing work for NASA. He's doing fine. He's doing just fine. If he only had one game in him, I'm glad it was this one, and I'm glad to have been the one to help him get it out there.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just have one in you, and that's all you have, and everything.
Yeah,
Sometimes, but
and that's okay. You know,
yep.
that's yeah, he made what he wanted to make, and it actually taught me a great lesson because I was trying to figure out who my audience was, and he
Hmm.
made this game with no intention of selling it at first,
Oh,
so
really?
it was completely uncompromised.
Hmm.
Except when I came in and asked him to change the name.
What was the original name?
Borio Kudanru, which
Ah, yep, yep.
is a fine name, but like no one ever spelled it the same way twice, and I knew that it would be a problem, and so
It's a
we
name that you'll pick up once you play it, but not before you
yeah,
play
but even
it.
when you play it, like, can you spell it?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Nope, nope. I definitely cannot spell it.
Yeah. And so we brainstormed and came up with that new name. We liked the Rue. The Rue we knew we wanted to
Oh
keep.
yeah, yeah. I remember
And
that.
we thought, well, they're going to the Gemini cluster, and there is a sense of like duality and brothers. Gemini works. Let's go with that.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and that I think was a good choice. We renamed Excavation of Hobbs Barrow as well.
Ah.
That was originally, oh God, I could never pronounce Incantamentum or something like that. Incantamentum. Yeah, I
Something like
never could
that.
pronounce it. I never could pronounce it right. Incantamentum. Yeah, that was it. I could never
Right, right.
pronounce it right. I could never spell it right. And like, I was pronouncing it wrong for like a year. And finally, it's
Hmm.
like when I finally realized I was pronouncing it wrong and never spelling it the same way twice, I begged them if we can change the name. And
Right.
they had their working title originally was The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, and thought
Ah,
that's a much better name. Let's go with that.
that is. That is a better name. I mean, it's a bit, tad bit wordy, but not that much. I mean, there's
Well,
wordier games.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we thought about it, and uh, we got I get a lot of advice from
Hmm.
a lady named Emily Morganti. She's someone I hired to
Hmm.
do PR, and I could bounce a
Hmm.
lot of ideas off of her when it comes to like how do you think this will sound to like the masses? And she made
Right.
an interesting point. She said it's a bit long, but so is whatever happened to Edith Finch. But
Exactly. I was just thinking that.
everyone just calls it Edith Finch.
So those, and most
And
people who know this know of it as Hobbs
yeah,
Barrow.
and everyone's just going to call this Hobbs Barrow. It doesn't matter how if it's a little wordy, it's just going to be Hobbs Barrow, and that's
Oh, yeah.
what it's
As
been.
long as it's not like the Emancipation of one Harley Quinzel Harley with Birds of Prey. That was like too wordy, way too wordy.
I mean, that's just everyone calls it Harley Quinn anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But then of course the Wormwood Studios guys. Oh man, I've talked with those guys before. Primordia, Strangeland, such creative imaginations from those guys.
Yeah. They're Mark is. I don't know how he does all this while being a full time lawyer, and not
Yeah.
just a lawyer.
Wow.
He's like a
Yeah.
federal prosecutor. Like
Oh.
he's not just a lawyer; he is a big lawyer. Like he's like very
Wow.
established and like partner at his firm. Like but he still makes the time to write these amazing games. He's got another one coming out called Fallen Gods, which
Ooh, I've heard about that. I've heard about
I
that.
have a testing built. I've yet to try it because I've been too busy with my own stuff. But
Right. Right.
yeah, Mark and I have become pretty good friends over the last few years.
Yeah, and I've talked with James as well. I think that's James, the other guy on the team. I think.
Yeah, not James Technobabylon James.
Oh no, not James. Sorry,
James
wrong guy,
Spanos.
wrong guy.
No, his name is James too.
Oh, there's
they're
another
both
James.
James. Yeah,
Okay.
James Spanos is Wormwood.
Yeah, him. I've had him on my show before.
So the sweetest guy in the world. Just absolutely, just just.
Yeah, I don't want to bring up too much. I just felt bad with what they had to deal with a while ago. I don't want to.
I mean, we're still dealing with it. Just that we don't need to go there. We don't need to go.
Yeah, we don't need to go there. I know. I just wanted to say, ugh. But of course, now interesting fact I found out. I don't remember if you brought it up before when I had you on before, but apparently was Unabouts supposed to be a Vertigo related book and product originally.
Not quite. What happened was I was at GDC one year. I don't know when. It must have been like 2014, 2015, something like that. And I got a email from Warner Brothers, just out of the blue. And they asked if we could have a meeting. And like, hey, you're at GDC, could we have a meeting? I'm like, I have no idea what this is about, but okay. And it was very mysterious. Like they brought me in, they sat me at a table, and like, could you, and they're like, yeah, we want to do we would like to do some adventure games based on Vertigo IPs. And
Yep.
so I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know what I do? Like, this is the style of what I do. And they said, yeah, this is what we want. And
Wow.
so what I did was I asked Ben, I got off when I left the meeting, I just quickly wrote Ben and I said, could you just draw like, a couple of characters from Vertigo comics, just have like John Constantine and Death and Dream like on a city street somewhere, just to like show them what this could look like. And he
Yep.
quickly did that, and it looked amazing.
Mhm.
And I mean, unfortunately, I mean it never happened because, and it might have been my fault because
Ooh.
they said, okay, why don't you? They wanted to do Hellblazer.
Ah.
I'm like, oh, I love Hellblazer.
Yep.
And I think that would be, it was like Hellblazer or Sandman. And I think Hellblazer would have been a better choice because
Right.
I always would feel weird about working on an IP that's the creation of like one person.
Right.
And, Neil Gaiman's a bit of a 4-letter word now, but
Yeah.
it's his vision, and that is a lot harder to recapture.
Oh yeah.
But Hellblazer has been written by so many people that I would
Mhm.
just be putting my own spin on it.
And it would match more the style.
Yeah. Though we didn't have that style at the time. We didn't have that style.
True.
But what happened? They said, okay, why don't you send us like a pitch document, And I put something together. I got some advice from former Telltale people because they also did Vertigo. They did The Walking Dead. They
worked Walking Dead, and they also did Fables.
Fables, yeah. So I asked them like, okay, how should I do this? And they're like, okay, come up with a number and double it, and because it's Warner Brothers, they can afford it. And so I put this together. And I submitted it to them, and I never heard back.
Aww.
And I could have followed up with them, and I probably should have. But at the time, I was, I think we were either working on Shardlight or something at the time. I was trying to get that done. And I had also recently worked on a game for another publisher, and it wasn't the best experience. And so I wasn't so eager to like work for a publisher again. And I could have followed up with them and maybe it would have happened, but I figured because they never even responded, they either I either asked for way too much money or they weren't serious. Either they were planning on lowballing me or whatever. And then just too much time went by and it felt weird following up.
Understandable. But you had all this idea.
Yeah, that screenshot that Ben drew was so evocative, and I just thought, why don't we make a game like this? And so Unavowed is basically that.
And it became one of your biggest hits.
It did. Yeah, it did. I mean, it's more Dresden Files than Hellblazer. But it's got that, look, like the red sky is very Hellblazer.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
I really just love Unavowed.
Well, I would have loved to have worked with Matt Ryan if we did Hellblazer.
Oh, that would have been. Hey, but you've been working with some big names, like you've been having Mike Pollock on more regularly. I mean, that's you have Eggman, you have Dr. Eggman on your stuff. They've been more, involved more often.
I mean, I'm kind of amazed that like some of the actors I've worked with have gone on to do incredible things. I'm still so proud of Sam Bayard. She did Thomasina in Hobbs Barrow, and then she did Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3. And some of the other actors, a lot of actors in Hobbs Barrow were in Baldur's Gate 3. Dave Jones was Halsin. He was he was a goblin in Hobbs Barrow, and then he was friggin' Halsin in Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm so like happy to have known them when, it's one thing to hire an actor when they're already famous. But like to hire someone when they're not as well known and then they get discovered by someone big later, it's like I feel justified. Hey. Like I knew I saw something in you. And
exactly. You feel like, hey, I had him on first before you guys.
And like Abe is in, of course, Abe Goldfarb is in like Pokemon and all this other stuff.
Pokemon. He's been in the Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotels. He
was touring with Beetlejuice for a long time.
The Beetlejuice stuff. Oh, and then, the people he knows through that.
Yeah.
And then of course you've had, you've worked with Francisco, who I've had him on. I got a lot of people on after I had you on. But Francisco, who's now currently doing his game, newest game,
Rosewater.
Yep. Can't wait for that whenever he gets that done. I mean, you have all of that. I mean, and you've also helped out. It wasn't so much a development, but you helped with the voice acting in Cassie Rain.
Yep, and Whispers of a Machine.
Yep, and Whispers of a Machine. And Yeah, how does that feel to be one of those people that some go to for asking for help with voice acting? How does that
I
feel?
love it because I love working with voice actors, and
Yep.
those games especially were great because
Hmm.
they were very similar to the kind of games I do, so
Yep.
it felt good, felt very familiar to work on them. It's great because I got all the joy and fuzzies of working with my voice actor friends without any of the effort of making the game.
Exactly. Without the headaches. Without the headaches, in other words.
So voice actors love working with me. Oh, thank you, Multiverse
Yep.
Patroller,
Yep. Now,
Multiverse Patroller One. Sorry.
yep. Now with Old Skies, what since that's the one coming up, what's it about? Let people know what's it about.
Okay. Here's the thing. I've always like with every project, I always want to try to pare it down to like a
Hmm.
1 or 2 sentence soundbite, and
Hmm.
I've yet to do that. So pardon me if I don't quite nail
No,
this
no, it's
yet.
all right. That's fine.
Basically, Old Skies is a time travel story where you you work for a time travel agency who that gives packages to the past, like
Hmm.
travel packages to the past, and so you go with clients to
Hmm.
various eras in New York history, and you make sure your job is to make sure nothing goes wrong, and
Like they're not going to abuse it.
and nothing ever
Oh,
does. The end.
yep.
No, everything go and naturally everything goes wrong. Everything goes wrong, and so
Yep.
everything goes off the rails in some spectacular way, and you have to put it right somehow.
Yep.
And so, like each mission sort of starts off with, "Here's what you're supposed to do.
Hmm.
Here's what you're in the past to do." Everything goes wrong, and so what you
Yeah.
end up doing is completely different than why you went there in the first place. And
Right.
I found that very fun to write.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that with the demo. And the demo, that's like was
Mm,
that the first mission or?
yes, that's the first
Yep.
mission.
Yeah, and that was an interesting one, having this guy go back in time, and it turns out, oh, he's not just there to visit; he's there because he wants to. Was it kill someone? I haven't replayed the demo in a
He wants to
while.
save someone. He wants to
Save
save
someone,
someone.
save
Yeah.
someone, right? But you can't do it. But you go to see why. You feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's like you know the rules, dude.
Yeah, yeah, that's just it. Like every time travel story
Hmm.
is one thing I've noticed while working on this is it sort of explained a lot about every time travel story that exists, or at least good ones, because you need to set limits. You need to
Hmm.
set rules about how time travel works and limits on what you can do with the story. There's a
Exactly.
reason why Back to the Future, for example, there's not a lot of rules about time travel. You could go anywhere and do
They're
anything.
unspoken rules,
Well,
technically.
maybe, but at the same
Yeah.
time, in terms of like you know that there was a mandate somewhere where
Yep.
they said you never leave Hill Valley,
Right.
and the story, the stakes never expand beyond Marty and Doc and their family.
My friend Pikachu just made a good point. She kind of looks like Jesse from Control. I think that's probably a coincidence because
I
I know.
haven't heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But
I know I've
I
heard
got
that a lot. It's because of the there's like this. Here's the funny thing is that Fia has about 7 different outfits throughout the game,
right.
and I except the leather jacket is like the one outfit that she chose to wear because she goes to different eras and then she gets given an outfit like that's
Hmm.
period appropriate. But the leather jacket is like the one that she wears in the present day, in her present, which
Hmm.
is our future.
Right.
um I based it off of a character from Dark Matter, number
Hmm.
5,
Ah.
because each of the characters are they're called by number. And she had this really cool leather jacket, which I loved her
Right.
outfit. So I'm like, we're giving Fia this. But like in the pose that she's in, where she's like holding this clock and her arm is
Hmm.
outstretched, that the pose and the leather jacket make people think of Jesse from Control, and
Yeah.
everyone keeps bringing this up. I'm like, and meanwhile, I'm listing there's like dozens of examples of characters like holding their arm out,
Yeah.
in
It's
that
a
pose.
combination. It's the combination of
It's like, they say,
Yeah.
hey, this is exactly like Jesse. I'm like, look at Iron Man. He does that exact same
Yep.
stupid pose. Like the John Travolta phenomenon, same thing.
Right.
Uh, uh, Life is Strange, True Colors, exact same thing.
Exactly. That's
And no
true.
one cares, but because she's wearing that leather jacket,
It's the hair
people
too.
just
I think
instantly
it's the
think
hair
the
too.
hair is completely different too. She doesn't
True.
have the same hair.
No, no,
Jesse
no,
has a
no. Yeah.
ponytail.
You're right.
There's a bit
You're
of
right.
a red tinge because of the lighting. That might be it.
That's it. That's it.
Um,
It's more the
and I
tinge. Yeah.
just keep thinking, I was debating forever which outfit should I put Fia in on the marketing, and
Hmm.
then I decided on the leather jacket because in my mind, that is more her because that's the
Right.
one outfit that she chose.
Hmm.
But now people think she is because it's similar to Jesse. Now I keep
It
getting, hey, she
happens.
looks like Jesse. I'm like, all right, no,
Nah.
please stop.
All right. So I didn't know that
It's
was a bit of
okay.
a.
It's all right. I've owned it. I have accepted it that I'll be hearing that comparison for the rest of my life, and
It's fine.
I have made my peace with it. It is okay.
Hey, how long is All Skies compared to Unavowed?
Long.
Long.
Each mission is about as long as like an average Blackwell game. It's
Oh
long.
yeah. Oh yeah. That demo was pretty lengthy.
Well, that's the shortest one. They're
Wow.
long. It takes me. Well, I could blast through Unavowed when I tested it in one day.
Hmm.
This it takes me like 3 days. It's
Wow.
long. It's longer than it should have been. I should have either made it shorter or made it or released it episodically. It's actually one of a game that calls out for it, but I'm glad we didn't because
Hmm.
there's a story arc that I think you miss
Hmm.
out on if it was split up.
Right.
So I'm glad even though it took so long, I'm glad we're releasing it as one big game. Though it's a bear to test, like
Oh,
it's mostly done, but I'm still testing it and
hmm.
adding, polishing it up, mostly sound
Right.
effects and stuff like that. It's
Right.
that's what I want in there.
So how many missions are there total in the game?
6 plus an
Six
epilogue.
plus an epilogue. All right. So yeah, that's going to be. Whew, wow. That's going to be a
But I'm very
lengthy.
happy with it. I'm very happy with how it turned out.
Right.
You always wonder, like, while you're making something, if it's gonna land, and I think
Hmm.
it does. It's different. It ended up being a lot more personal than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So I personally feel really connected to it, and I hope others are too.
Hmm. So yeah, I cannot wait. That's like one of the games I'm constantly keeping an eye out for because I really want to play that, especially after that demo. That demo was, it's
I'm
like
so glad. I'm so
yep,
glad.
he nailed it again. He nailed it
Thank
again.
you. Thank you so much.
Yep. I mean, with Unavowed, I mean, that's one thing else I want to ask. Where did the idea of this Dragon Age origin style pick your, male, female, pick
Oh,
their origin,
that's
the origin stuff?
that's an
Where did
interesting
that come
story.
from?
Well, there was an article or an interview. Just a second. I was in an interview yesterday, and my voice got so dry. I'm making a big point of drinking
Gotcha.
tea, nothing else. There was a interview with a former BioWare writer
Hmm.
named Jennifer Hepler,
Hmm.
and she made this at the time, very controversial statement
Hmm.
where she said, when you play a lot of action games, you're always allowed to skip cutscenes, skip dialogue to get to the action. She wanted to skip the action to get to the narrative stuff. Because for her,
Some
like
games are like
especially
that.
in those BioWare style games, those were the core of the experience,
Yep.
um, choosing which characters to go on missions with, um,
Oh, believe me,
improving the
Mass
relationships,
Effect. I'm like that. I'm like that
choosing
with
which
Mass Effect.
character you're going to hook up with.
Yeah.
That's the game for her and a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I but a lot of people didn't like that. Like, oh, fake gamer, whatever. It was 2014, so what did you expect?
Wow, 10 years ago. Yeah.
But I when I heard that, I just kept thinking like that, like a BioWare style game without the combat feels like the point and click adventure game of my dreams. Like I think that would be fun, and because I love
Hmm.
those games, but it never occurred to me to make one like that because
Hmm.
I couldn't handle the combat and stuff. I don't know how to do that. But like, why do you need the combat? I guess you don't need the combat. And
Right.
I was waiting for someone to make that game, and no one ever did. And then it's just an absolute serendipitous moment where I was at GDC,
Hmm.
and I saw Jennifer Hepler was giving a talk,
Hmm.
and she started the talk. She had her name up on the screen, and it said
Hmm.
Jennifer Brandes Hepler, and I'm suddenly thinking like, wait, when I was 13, I went to a summer camp with a girl named Jenny Brandes,
Hmm.
and I'm looking at her, And I'm like, I think that's her. Like we hung out.
Oh.
Like we used to we like went to each other's houses and went to like events and things like that. We were young,
Mhm.
you know, it had been a long
Right, right.
time. And she changed her name when she got married.
Right.
And when it was over, I went up to her and I asked her, like, are you Jenny Brandes who went to Bucks Rock in the 90s? And she looked at me and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, Dave Gilbert. And she's like, oh my God, hi. And so that was just wild. The fact that I was inspired by the words of someone who was a childhood friend and I didn't know it. And
You
so
didn't realize it.
it felt like a sign, you know, like a sign from the heavens, like you
Mhm.
need to make this game, right?
Right.
And I figured if there was ever any clear indicator that I was supposed to make this, that was it. So
Right.
I did make it, and
Mhm.
it came out 6 years ago.
What's your favorite of yours if you had to pick one?
Ooh, I like them all for different reasons.
All right.
Because I like, I think the cop
Mhm.
has like the best, like story arc, the best like
Mhm.
story. I just like that story. That's my
Mhm.
favorite one. I like the actor origin because I feel like it's got the best like characters
Mhm.
of those two characters, like in the actor origin, are like my
Mhm.
favorite. And I love the muse, like that. This like,
Right.
and I love the bartender origin just because
Mhm.
it's like there's like an arc. There's like you feel like there's actually a character arc for one of the characters in that origin.
Right.
It's actually a little mini story, and so I like each of
Mhm.
them for different reasons. Like I don't like any one more than the other, but I like
Right.
each of them for different reasons.
Right. But yeah, because again, I always just found this so interesting. And of course, the fact that your character can't really talk at all and all that. I
The
mean,
character isn't voiced. The character
right.
does talk, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. But I meant, yeah, isn't voiced.
Some people got annoyed by that, but I just figured, you know, with mid-era Bioware games, and even as late as the recent Baldur's Gate 3, it's a paradigm that people are very familiar with, and no one minds that the
Yeah.
main character doesn't talk.
I
And
mean, Link never talks in Zelda.
no, Link never talks to Zelda. No.
Zelda talks now, but not Link.
Well, like I said, they're not voiced. They do
Right.
talk. Like the characters say, "Oh, like you went." Like, they will respond to something that the
Yep.
character supposedly says.
Right.
Um,
I meant Zelda is voiced in more recent games, is what I
oh yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And but yeah, I mean, again, just so much to be going over. Again, like Charlotte was an interesting one. I mean, it's not set in the same universe. I mean, I hope not, given everything and
No, it's
how
not.
dark it was. Like, where did that story come from?
I didn't write that one.
Oh,
It was one
really?
of the few games where we kind of funded from start to
Mm-hmm.
finish. I paid Francisco a salary while he was working on it, and of course, I
Mm-hmm.
paid Ben anyway. And so between the two of them, they just made the game.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, I couldn't afford to keep Francisco on after the game came out. I've
Oof.
always felt bad about that, just because
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, Adventure games are hard.
Oh yeah,
It's
they
there.
are.
I think like we do pretty well. Like the money I get is a great salary for one person.
Right.
More than that, the more people I pay, the less money I
Yeah.
have, and less the company has, and it's like
Yeah.
narrow margins. I couldn't. It's very hard to justify because
So it was their game, in other words, both of their Francisco and
yeah,
Ben's game.
Francisco and Ben worked on it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember they did that. The preludes, the double
Yes.
pre. Yeah,
Oh my God. Wow.
yeah, I remember
You
that. Those
are.
were yeah. Hey, if it's connected to the games, I played them. I got them. They're still on my computer. It was what were the names for them? They were two very short games. One did the other. The
Reaper and something else, I think.
Reaper and hold on, I got it on here somewhere. Oh boy, don't you hate when you're typing in the name, but then for some reason it doesn't get everything. It just gets the first one, and next you know you're back. Like I'm typing it goes to T, then it just comes to H. It's like what the heck? Don't you hate when that happens? It's just give me a break. But hold on, the Rebirth, and I'm just trying to find it because I just want to get this. It's gonna bother me right now. The Rebirth.
Rebirth. That's it.
The
Yep.
Reaper and the Rebirth. Yeah. Those were, and, one was a prelude and one was set, like right when the bombs dropped and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was still an interesting one, a bit on the really darker side and all that. But yeah. I found that an interesting one, but
That was that was an interesting project because it's like I was involved, but I wasn't like
mhm,
real. I was just sort of there as a
mhm.
producer, just making sure everything
Gotcha.
got done.
I gotcha.
Which
I gotcha.
I haven't done anything like that in a while, but maybe
Hmm.
one day.
And oh, yeah, I see you have Nighthawks there. How's that game coming along?
Still coming along. Richard was dealing with some health issues, not as serious as what James had. So the game is still
Hmm.
being made.
Hmm.
It's we did all the voice acting last year,
Uh-huh.
and it's getting there. We there were some hiccups along the way, but we're making up for lost time.
Right,
So
right,
that's still being worked on. It's so fun. It's just
right.
it's so great. Like
I
I
can't
really
wait.
want people to see it. I really it's
Hmm.
just it's hard. Nighthawks is a hard one to talk about, or at least it's a hard one to like show off because it's
Hmm.
all static images. Like I show a
Hmm.
picture of one character, and that's pretty much every image of that character you'll ever see in the game. So it's very hard to like. I have to be very parsimonious when I release anything with Nighthawks because um, it's going to be a challenge marketing that one because I've never sold a visual novel style game before,
Right.
but it's a really good one. It's
Yep.
just really, really good.
Yep.
And
Nice. It's nice experimenting with that type of
yeah,
format.
and
It's
Richard
like,
knows that format. He worked
mhm.
on Sunless Sea and
Oh
In
yeah.
the Sky, so he knows that format. He knows that style. So
Yep.
he's it's all written. It's just a lot of it's really, really big. It's
Right.
basically like it's an RPG with lots of branches, lots of branching,
Hmm.
and so it's
Wow.
just it got a little unmanageable, and we're trying to we're trying to rein it in and figure it.
Right.
We're getting there. It's just it's a lot.
Yep.
It's a
By the
lot
way,
bigger than we had planned.
I still also sometimes dabble with the new guys and everything. I've still
To new
played
guy.
that. Has there ever been talk about coming back to that? I mean, have you ever heard from Chris
Yeah,
Burton about that?
Chris created Adventure Creator. It's
Oh,
a Unity plugin for adventure games, and
right.
he's pretty much doing that. And he got into animation.
Hmm.
He's
Oh,
I
yeah,
haven't
I've seen
spoken
his
to him.
animation. It's like,
It's really
wow.
good. Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about the new guys is that
Mhm.
in screenshots it maybe doesn't look all that impressive, but
Right.
when the characters move, they're
Yeah.
so fluid and
Some
everything
of
is
the
just so
best
good.
animation.
Some
Yeah.
of the best action charged scenes in
Yeah.
any game I've published. Because like action stuff is difficult in adventure
Hmm.
games, and the like the wrestling scene at the end is so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculously fun, and I always felt bad it maybe didn't do quite as it didn't really find an audience, but I was happy to publish it because I just
Yeah.
loved it.
Hey, I loved the original. I love this one. I mean, it
Mhm.
did feel like a little bit of I won't say a wash, rinse, repeat, but kind of a similar story to the first one, but then just much bigger, but
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah, yeah.
felt like what a sequel would do. They do the same thing but bigger.
It just it takes what you have and expands on it. That's what a sequel's supposed to do.
Yep. Oh, by the way, I've actually been able to finally get Emerald City Confidential
Oh wow,
working.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
heard that. Yeah, you have to change the compatibility to Windows 95, fixes the mouse issue.
really? That's
Yeah,
funny because the game came out in 2009 or 2008.
but for some
So that
reason, setting it to that fixes because there's this weird mouse issue where the mouse would not work properly. But
no
if you,
idea. I wish I had a modicum of control over that one, but
hmm
I would get sued if I did anything. So I
oh
just
yeah,
leave it.
that's the game. Play First, I believe.
Play First, who was
Yeah.
bought by Glue Mobile, and then Glue Mobile was bought by EA. So
Oh
technically, I have a
no.
game owned that technically I sold out to EA in a very indirect way.
in a roundabout way.
I have a
But that was
game
still a
sold by
clever
EA.
game.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
still
thank
a
you.
very yeah. I just really that one like where did some of the ideas come to make some of the like the lion such a
I the one thing about that game, like I was still a very new developer when I made that game, and I was given a much bigger budget than I was used
Mhm.
to
Oh, it
suddenly. And
definitely shows in the artwork and everything.
yeah, and it was I wanted to do for Oz what I guess what Discworld Noir did for Discworld.
Hmm.
Like I just kind of loved putting a noir spin on like something,
Hmm.
and I think like if I you always like I said with experience there's always things you want to change, and
Hmm.
Emerald City Confidential was interesting because the publisher was a casual games company,
Mhm.
and they did like Diner Dash and Chocolatier and stuff like
Yep.
that. And they, like, I assumed when they hired me, I'm just going to make the types of games I normally do, just with a bigger budget. And then they would put that game in front of their testers who were familiar with like Diner Dash and stuff, and they had no
Oh
idea.
boy.
They had no idea how to play this game, and so we had to end up streamlining it by a lot. And I'm wondering, like I figured, well, they're the publisher, they're in charge. I'll do whatever they say. And in hindsight, maybe I should have pushed back a little bit. I don't know if it would have made the game better, but I think what we ended up with, because we ended up streamlining the game to such a degree that it practically played itself. And at least the first few hours of it were just so like condescendingly easy.
Mhm.
And I think that turned off a lot of the adventure game players, while the casual players were never going to enjoy this type of game to start with. So I think like it was an interesting marriage. I did enjoy working with Play First, and if it taught me anything, is that like they kept insisting I edit down the dialogue, and they're the ones who really, no one had ever told me to do that before until I realized, oh yeah, like I need to streamline this, and that really taught me to do that. But it was a very interesting experience, like working for someone else, and keeping something like under budget and try to keep. We ended up having to cut things because it was just going over budget, that kind of stuff. So
There
there's
we
like,
go. Yep.
oh, there we go. Okay, I don't know why.
Both will keep it here, but there's one game that's not on here, but I know you've worked on. I really like playing was Puzzle Bots.
Oh yeah, that's because actually I did with Golden Wake too. I gave the rights back to the developer, so Puzzle Bots is now owned by Aaron. But yeah, Ivy. Lively. It's funny because
she's now I've just looked at her website. She's been working on Horizon and everything.
She's doing very well for herself.
Yeah.
So
I still remember when she did Spooks. I still remember Spooks.
Yep, I remember Spooks.
Like, she went from Spooks to now quest designing for Horizon. Like, wow.
She's just, she's got to work on another redhead. So naturally, it's funny you say Ivy, because I think the only Ivy I really know now is Ivy Dupler, and so I hear Ivy.
I just never heard Ivy games. I see Ivy.
Lively Ivy. She's Aaron to me.
Puzzle
Bots was the first game I published. That was the first game I ever published. So that's where I sadly made all my mistakes as a publisher. Not mistakes, but like I was like, when I first thought I'd be a publisher, I figured, I'll just do the stuff that Play First did for me. But in hindsight, Play First wasn't the best publisher for me. So it wasn't like the best way to like learn to be a publisher. But it's and also that was like when I was thinking, oh, the casual market is where I should be selling games. And by the time the game came out, the casual market had shifted to other types of games. And that taught me a valuable lesson in don't try to gauge the market. But it's such a cute game, and I broke the laws of physics getting it to work in AGS. It's so cute. And it's just so sweet. It's so sweet. Aaron, it's got this joy that you don't get a lot.
Definitely.
And so that was an interesting project to work on.
Yep. So there's one thing I've always heard people always ask. We're like, give the IPs to these guys. Have them do Loom. Have them do stuff like that. Does it ever get a little annoying hearing that? Where you're like, guys, we can't do this. I mean, it's always flattering, I bet. But
the issue is, I'm happy doing my own stuff. Right. And it's like if someone said, like, if Brian Moriarty got the rights to Loom back, or if someone got the rights to Loom back, and then came to me and said, hey, we'd love for you guys to be involved, I would jump at it. I would drop everything and do it. I have no desire. I don't have the time, patience, energy, or knowledge to deal with that red tape hassle myself. I am not going to be the one to like take the initiative to get the IP for me. I'm just not going to do it.
I mean, look at Ron Gilbert was Return to account. He just got lucky. He got lucky.
Well, apparently it was Devolver who did all that. Like was it Devolver? It was Devolver. They got the rights for him, and So yeah, he didn't even have to deal with that himself. At least that's
I
right.
know.
Don't quote me. I'm
Oh
not
no,
sure if
no.
that's
I think it was Devolver, or it was someone from Lucasfilm who reached out, and then Devolver helped out, or something like that.
I don't know.
But
It's
you know.
a lot
But
of
yeah,
hassle,
a lot of hats off. But when even
especially
the
because it's owned by
creators,
Disney. So no way. I have no
yeah.
interest. No interest at
Yeah,
all.
no, yeah. I
But
mean,
if someone else asked me, if someone else did all that and asked
yeah,
me to be involved, hell yeah, sure.
yeah. Because I mean, your style definitely matches. So again, those old Lucas art styles and everything. And okay, old school adventure game question. I gotta ask, which one do you prefer, LucasArts or Sierra? I'm petting LucasArts, but yeah.
Infocom.
Oh, did not expect that.
I'm not being facetious either, because that's what I
Right.
grew up on. Because I had an Apple II growing up, and
Ah.
pretty much the only games I could play were
What do
so I grew up on Zork and Planetfall and
Mhm.
Bureaucracy and Trinity and Mind River Voyaging and all those. So like when I think
Right.
of my childhood gaming, that's what I think of.
Yeah, for me, it's always been LucasArts. I played those more. I mean, I played Space Quest as well, but I did them when they were more the point and click version. Like Parser, it's more something I do nowadays. As a kid, oh God, I could never do Parser.
Mm.
That was always a annoyance. You know what I mean?
I
But
always could type fast, so that didn't bother me.
definitely. I mean, I could do it now.
Especially
No
when the game
problem.
didn't pause when you were typing. They finally added that feature where
Ooh,
you would type and the game would pause while you typed. Before like a
yeah.
monster's coming at you and you got to type. I could do it.
Oh
So
God, that was
I could
oh
type fast.
boy. Just imagine with the first King Quest trying to deal with the giant or whatever. If you wanted to actually, I mean, of course, if you're smart, go around the tree, just knock him and get him tired. But if you wanted to do the lower point and shoot the slingshot, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about doing a parser game?
No. I'll leave
No.
that. I'll leave that to Julia. I think you've interviewed her.
Yeah.
Crimson Diamond,
Yep. Yep. Oh, yep. Yep.
Julia
Oh boy,
Minamata.
that was so good. That was so good. That game. Have you played it?
I have. I haven't finished it yet, but
Yep.
it's an amazing piece of
Yep.
work.
I got to the end and everything. I've even gone through and did all of the endings so I can get all of the achievements and everything.
Oh
And that,
wow.
yeah, it's not as much as I was thinking. I thought it was gonna be a lot harder to get the ending, but like, oh no. I mean, you know what won me over? It won me over was her homaging the psycho death.
That was the first thing I did. So it was
Yeah.
like 5 minutes. I
Yep.
died because I just took a shower and went. And that was it.
Like, well, did Alfred teach you nothing?
First achievement in the game. That's
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I gotta start wrapping up. I got work meeting to be getting to, but
It's been an hour already. Wow.
oh yeah, it has. But Dave, thank you so much for this. I mean, it's so great.
You're very welcome. Very
Yep,
welcome.
I cannot wait for Old Skies. Just keep up the great work. I mean, yeah.
Neither
Besides,
can I.
yep, besides Old Skies and Nighthawks, there anything else in the work or any deals you're working on? Without it, you don't have to say what. Just in
sort
general.
of. They are. I have been in talks with some developers, and sadly, it's like this is. I realize soon that this is not the time for me to like be reliable
Right.
because I'm so focused on Old Skies and I'm just not
Right.
reliable. And I had a few talks with some developers going about games to potentially publish, and I just sort of let weeks go by without responding. And I finally had to write them all and be like, "Look, I am really sorry. I need to get this game out. Let's talk next year, like after this game is done, because I'll have this off my plate, and I will have the spoon. I will have collected more spoons, as they say, and I will." So yeah, there's a couple of games that I'm thinking of publishing. Whether I do, we'll see. But
so right now it's just Old Skies and Nighthawks.
Old Skies and Nighthawks. Yeah, those are the only two on my plate right now. And although here's the interesting thing, Ben, he asked if he could design the next like Wadjet game. He wanted to design it as well as do the art, and he has this very interesting idea. And he showed me some sketches. Meanwhile, he's still doing the final touches on Old Skies at the same time.
Obviously,
the guy's a monster.
yes, he is.
Machine. And so he wants to do a game of his own. He hasn't written his own game in years, and he wants to do do a Wadjet game. And I basically act as his publisher. And so I said, yeah, let's do that. And that actually that'll work out really well for me because like I'm going to be burnt out once this game is
yeah.
done, and it'll be nice that like a game will kind of happen by itself. It's like the company is sort of working on its own, you know. It's like that's kind of
Keep
nice.
it in house.
Yeah, and I'll be involved, obviously, because I'm going to be producing it. But it's nice to know that while I'm burnt out and recuperating, like something else is happening. So that's it's really, he's doing like a really dark fantasy, and just it's Ben. So you know, at the very bare minimum, visually, it's going to be stellar.
Oh geez, I remember all of his Mags games or whatever, you know, the one room games or whatever games.
Exclamation point! Yeah,
yeah. I remember all of those games he did, and he did so many of them. Some really light, some really dark. He actually went some dark, like Featherweight, I believe, was one of them, and you know, stuff like that.
That was another one.
Yeah, but he did some really wacky ones. I'm just like, wow, the guy has a creative mind.
I think he's, as much as I think he likes working with me, you know, most of my, even if the stories are a little fantastical, they're quite mundane most of the time. It's like cities, you know, basic stuff. He wants to really let his imagination go, and he wants to do something like fantasy and crazy landscapes and stuff like that. And, because he just wants to draw. You know, he wants to create something. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I think so. That is what's happening next. I have nothing. Like we have talked about it online, so it's not like a big secret. But there's nothing to really show yet. There's nothing to really
obviously. But yeah,
we got 2 games to get through first.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So 2 are in development. One's about to go pre-production eventually.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I gotta get going. So
thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you for everyone. Thank you, Dave. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye bye.
Take care.